let's focus on this. Usually when you see f of x, do you even know what f of x is? Make sure you understand that f of x is the same thing as the basic of y is equal to 2x. You're not confused about the concept when x is equal to a certain number. When x equals to 1, y has to be equal to 2 times 1. When x equals to 2, comma, y has to be equal to 4. You get this basic relationship over here? That's all it means if you have y is equal to 2x. It's just telling you whatever this variable is going to be, this number that can change, which is based on 2 multiplied by whatever this variable can be. Why am I showing you this? I'm trying to explain to you, right? Make sure you understand that when you're dealing with functions, it really just, what even is a function? It's just, if you have f of x, it's just telling you an instruction on what to do with the x. For all intents and purposes, if you replace the f of x with just the letter y, it works the same way. Okay? That's all there is to it. That's all you gotta know to get the marks. We don't give a fuck about anything else. We just need to know what that even is, how to do the questions, how to interpret it, and just get the marks and move on. So if you have f of x equals to 2x, just understand this is just a way of, remember math? Math is a language. It's just showing an instruction. It's just telling you whatever you do with the x over here, it's going to be 2 times that x. And that's what we mean by the input. The input is just going to be whatever we put inside of that function. Okay? The input is whatever we put inside of that function. The output is just what we get, to say the least. Anyways, in practice, if you have this particular function, this f of x equals to, whenever you see f of x, it just means that's a function. It's just an instruction showing you what you do with an x. It's telling you whatever you put inside of here, it's going to be x squared plus 2. That's all it does over here, right? This is just going to be, let's change this to the pen. Yeah? It's just x to the power of 2 plus 2. I mean, it's, yeah, it's self-explanatory. F of 3 just means, look how you replace the x over here with 3. See how this is just an instruction? This is just a way of depicting whenever you have f of x equals to x squared plus 2, f of 3 shows that the x was replaced with 3, so the right-hand side is just going to be whatever you did with the x. It's telling you the x becomes x squared plus 2. See the similarities over here? The x over here, left-hand side becomes x squared, so if you replace the x with 3, right-hand side becomes 3 squared. This is just all the function means. It just tells you a particular thing to do to a number you put inside of that function, that instruction over there. Just like negative 5 means replace the x over here with negative 5. F of negative 5 is just going to be equal to whatever negative 5 squared plus 2 is, because the x in here was replaced with negative 5. That's just how you use functions. That's all it is. Just like if they give you something a little bit more abstract, it doesn't matter, because if you replace the x with a, it just means a squared plus 2 is what f of a is. You're trying to find a. Remember the basics of finding a missing letter? If you have one missing letter, all you need is one equation involving that missing letter. So if you know that f of a is going to be the same thing as a squared plus 2, because f of a replaced the x's with a. So I'm explaining to you in real time what you would think to interpret this question, to have to do the problem. A squared plus 2, f of a is just a squared plus 2. A squared is then equal to 38. That's all we have over here. And obviously when you see a squared plus 2 equals 38, you're not confused about how you solve that. Just rearrange for the a. A squared is equal to 38 minus 2, and so forth. Same thing over here. If you replace the x over here with x minus 1, then it's just going to be x minus 1 plus 1, which you don't need to be told that x minus 1 plus 1 can be simplified into x. F of x over here, if it's telling you whatever you put inside of the left-hand side is equal to x plus 1, then f of x squared is just going to be replace the x with x squared, and that's where you get x squared plus 1. Just like f of x squared, do not get this confused the same thing as x squared inside the brackets. Inside the bracket is still a regular x, it just means the whole thing f of x squared. See this? Make sure you understand that distinction over here. F of x is x plus 1, so f of x squared just means x plus 1 squared, which is what we have over here. F of 2x, replace the x with 2x. So far so good? No problem? Just like this, f of 2x was negative 1 minus 1. Just replace the x with minus 1. 2 times x now becomes 2 times x minus 1, which is where we get, you don't need to be told this can be expanded and simplified. Replace the x over here with x squared, 2x squared. Just like if you have f of x squared means this entirety, the entirety of f of x to the power of 2. So 2x to the power of 2 just gives you 4x squared. Just like over here, if you replace the x with, see this? Left-hand side becomes x squared, so if you replace the x with x minus 1, the right-hand side just becomes x minus 1 squared minus 1. And you don't need to be told why that can be simplified into this. In case you're wondering, if you're a simple fuck, you have this, x minus 1 squared, you're not confused about why this is the same thing as x minus 1, times x minus 1 equals to x bracket x minus 1 minus 1 times x minus 1, which is x squared minus x plus 1. You see where it's going? X squared minus 2x plus 1. Make sure you know this basic. So if you put a minus 1 to that side, it becomes x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 1. If you don't know this, you're pretty fucked with the exam, yeah? So go ahead and make sure you learn this. Now, just like this over here, if you know this is f of 2x, just means replace the x over here with 2x. So do you see the purpose of this? In the exams, when they give you these instructions, they're telling you, without needing to be told, you're expected to know what to do to change what's given in front of you to get what you need, depending on what the question's asking. Just make sure you know these rules over here. Like, you know that f of x squared minus 1 is the same thing as replacing the x over here with x squared plus 1. That's all it is. Just make sure you have that available to you. Same thing over here, replace the x with x minus 1. Oh, so 3 times x minus 1 minus 1. Which, move on, right? Replace the x over here with 2x. Same thing here. If you're still confused, just message me. X over here replaced with x to the power 3, yeah? And if you replace the x over here, look at this. If they're telling you f of x squared equals to 51, at the end of the day, solving just means what? You can, no matter what type of question it is, solve just means finding a missing letter is equal to something. Clearly, in this case, the only variable we need to find is just x, isn't it? So when they're telling you f of x squared equals to 51, they're expecting us what? Common sense tells you this needs to be written into some sort of equation involving x to rearrange for using basic algebra. And you realize f of x squared can only be rewritten as what? Replacing the x over here with x squared, which is 2x squared plus 1 equals to 51. That's how we got this first equation, and I'm sure you know how the algebra solves that into x equals to plus or minus 5. Same thing over here, work out x when f of x equals 0. I mean, come on, if of x equals this, f of x equals 0. You don't need to be told that this is equal to 0 then, and that's going to be an equation you can solve, right? Yeah? Just like f of negative 13 over here, negative 3 gives you 13. Does that mean you replace the x over here with negative 3? Replace the x over negative 3, and that's going to give you negative 3 squared, which is 9. A times negative 3, which is minus 3a. The simplification of algebra over here, isn't it? Left-hand side becomes this. 9 minus 3a minus 8 component is still equal to 13 over here, and that's how you can rearrange for the a. Same thing over here, show that f of x plus 2 is equal to this. The only way you can show something in math is what? By actually finding it. Finding what x plus 2 into this instruction is. Because you know by now function is an instruction. You just do whatever they're showing you needs to be done to the x. X they're showing you needs to become x squared plus 3x. So if x is replaced with x plus 2, you would do x plus 2 squared plus 3 times x plus 2 minus 10. Which is what they've done over here. And you can tell that can be simplified and expanded into overall x bracket x plus 7. Same principle over here, replace the x with x squared. You get 3x squared minus 5, which you know is also equal to 43. That's a relationship you can solve for x. Now this one over here, don't get confused. Like, instinct over here, you might, because if you're a noob, right, you just be like, fuck, what do I do with this symbol? All this is, at the end of the day, is telling you, if you looked at what x squared minus 4 even is, x squared minus 4, that's a parabola. A parabola is infinite, isn't it? Are you confused about why a parabola is infinite? Surely you're not. You understand x squared minus 4 over here is just a parabola that goes on infinitely. So when they tell you it is between negative, what? It's between the 0 and the 3. It's implying what? Where do you think 0 is? Where do you think 3 is? It's telling you this is the only portion of the graph that exists now. Like all this shit doesn't exist anymore. See what that means? Between 0 and 3. Because look at where between 0 and 3 even is. It's this portion of the graph. So if you have x squared minus 4, you have x squared minus 4 like this. Between 0 and 3, 0 is over here, 3 is over here. This is the portion of the graph then, isn't it? Between 0 and 3. This is the portion of the graph. Okay? So if you know that, just in case you're noob as fuck. I mean, if you're watching this video, you're pretty much noob. Like, you need to be looking at the basics here. I mean, come on, the title of this video is called, What is a Function? You know, if you're looking at what is a function, then this is very necessary. Anyone who's like half up to date with AS Math is not going to need to watch this, yeah? Like, they should know what the fuck it is. But, so I'm explaining to you, okay? I'm just explaining to you, if you have 14 minus 3x, you know this is just literally downward sloping line like this, between 3 and 5, wherever 3 and 5 is. Like, you get that it's just this portion of the graph now. Like, all this shit doesn't exist anymore. Yeah? Now, so, do you see what this symbol really means? It just means you take this portion of the graph, and then this portion of the graph. You put them all on the same grids. As in between 0 and 3, it's going to be whatever that part of the parabola is. So it would look like this, between 0 and 3, for example, yeah? And then between 3 and 5 is whatever this part of the graph looked like. Like this, for example. This portion of the straight line, between 3 and 5. This could be 3, this could be 5. I'm just saying hypothetically. You get the principle, right? You're just taking portions of this graph. Portions of this graph between 3 and 5, combined with portions of this graph between 0 and 3. That's all it is at the end of the day. And then without further ado, you realize f of 1 is just going to be... Look at where 1 is. The 1 is replacing the x as 1. Oh, f of 1 just means x equals to 1. Where is 1 going to belong? Between the 0 and the 3, or the 3 and the 5? Do you see what we're doing over here? It's about needing to be told. Without needing to be told, you're like, oh, f of 1 just means replace the x of 1. Where does the 1 belong to? That's how we interpret the instruction over here. Math is just instructions, right? Knowing how to interpret those instructions is half the work. 1, replace the x over here between 0 and 3. Oh, of course, we just follow this instruction, right? F of x. Equations, instructions, knowing what to do with an x. And that's why we just do 1 minus 4. Because the 1 belongs in the 0 to 3 region. They're saying between 0 and 3, we always use this instruction. So f of 1 means x equals to 1. Therefore, between here, 1 minus 4. If a 4 is between 3 and 5. This is literally what the instruction is, right? We interpret it as between 3 and 5. Every single x value is plugged into here. Oh, so just replace the 4. 14 minus 3 times 4. Okay? Solve this is equal to 0. If you make that equal to 0, do you understand why you're going to make both of these equal to 0? Because both of these what? F of x is defined by both of these, aren't they? F of x is defined by both of these functions. So if you make them both of them equal to 0, do you see why you're going to make them both equal to 0? Yeah? You know that x squared minus 4 equals to 0 has plus or minus 2. There's two possible answers. The only reason why we accept the positive one, as when we reject it, we're saying it cannot equal to negative 2, is look at what this instruction belongs to. X squared minus 4 belongs to the instruction. It has to be between 0 and 3. It has to be between 0 and 3. So if you're saying over here can equal to negative 2 or positive 2, of course you've got to reject the negative 2, isn't it? Because negative 2 is not between this 0 and 3. Okay? So make sure you understand what this means. Just like over here, if you solve this, there's only one answer for this, which is 14 over 3. 14 over 3, isn't that just 4 point something? Is 4 point something between 3 and 5? You understand? Because this is the instruction. We're saying this instruction has to be belong. All the x values in here have to be between 3 and 5. So if you found an answer over here, which is 4 point something, is 4 point something between 3 and 5? Of course it is. Now if you look at number 6, same principle already, right? Replace the x with 2x. So 2 times 2x minus 1. Replace the x with x squared, 2 times x squared minus 1. Replace the x of 2x minus 1, 2 times 2x minus 1 minus 1. Yeah? Now if you look at f of 1 plus 2 times f of x minus 1, 1 plus 2 times f of x minus 1, what is f of x minus 1? Do you understand, like for this type of question, the first thing you do over here is, so let's look at this in real time, as in if you got given a question like this, you can tell it's quite long-winded over here. Make sure you realize you just do this part first, f of x minus 1 first. Because remember, you're putting all of this into the x over here. So if you got this in an exam scenario, you'd understand it just means same definition over here. This gets replaced, the x over here. If you were to replace the x with whatever this is, doesn't that help to find whatever this is first? And doesn't that help to find whatever this is first? So you go f of x minus 1. What is f of x minus 1? 2 bracket x minus 1 minus 1. And that's going to be equal to 2x minus 2 minus 1, which is 2x minus 3. See how that works? Do you see what I'm suggesting over here? I'm explaining to you without needing to be told. You recognize it helps to write f of x minus 1 first, which is 2x minus 3. And then doing 2 times that. Individually evaluating that, which is 4x minus 6. And then doing 1 plus that, which is 4x minus 5. And that's why we replace the x in here with 4x minus 5. Because you're taking this whole thing to replace the x. We found this whole thing simplifies into 4x minus 5. So do you see it means the same thing as this now? This is the same thing as 4x minus 5. So it just means replacing the x in here with 4x minus 5. Just make sure you follow this instruction. And then if you replace the x with 4x minus 5, it becomes 2 times 4x minus 5 minus 1 then, doesn't it? Which is 8x minus 11, which is what we have over here. Solving f of x plus 1 plus f of x minus 1. What's x over here? X plus 1. Replace the x over here with 2 bracket x plus 1 minus 1. You're adding this what? Replacing the x over here with x minus 1. 2 bracket x minus 1 minus 1. Which is 2x plus 2 minus 1 plus 2x minus 2 minus 1. Just like that. Which is 4x minus 2. 4x minus 2. If you make that whole thing equal to 0, then you can rearrange for x equals to 2.